Steve Prefontaine started down in Coos Bay, Oregon. Does everyone know where Coos Bay is?
Nope.
Southern Oregon coast. Small town, logging town. He got the bug probably when he was, in the 8th grade. And he saw the football team and he was going, man, I wish I could be a football player. But he saw these guys and he thought, well, I'm just not big enough to do it, so I've got to find something that I would be good at and what I enjoy. But his first experience with it was watching the runners run on the track, and those guys would run and run and run, and he was like, well, I don't know if I really would want to do that or not. So I'm gonna think about it and see if that might be something that I can do, because I can't be a football player because I'm too short to do it. So he started thinking about it, and he started to get the bug for it. Thought, hey, you know what? I can do this. So I'm gonna go out for it. I'm gonna try it, see what I can do. So he went out. His freshman year. He lost some races. He learned by those losses, and by losing, it can be a win for you, because he took the losses. If you're not going to listen, then I'm not going to talk. It's going to be a different ball game with me. You're going to pay attention. I'm not going to waste my time if you're not going to listen. Okay? So, when Steve was a freshman in high school, that's when he started running. He'd run about 40 miles a week. And it became fun for him. He became obsessed with it even, because he loved it so much. So he ran all the time after that. And he kept his intensity up, he kept his drive up, and he had a goal. I don't want to get beat anymore, and I'll do whatever it takes to not get beat. So he went out, he did his training, he did a lot of focusing on the races that he was going to do. Sometimes he focused too much on it, and he would come in and before his race and go, man, I just don't know if I can do this or not. I don't know if I can win this one today. And you know what? And it just, once he got on the track, it was a different ball game. He became focused on what the goal was, and it was instantaneous. If you can focus on it, you can do it. And he did it. So in high school, he became really good, not only in track, but in cross country. He was almost unbeatable. And he kept that drive and that intensity up his whole career. So he went to Marshfield. Then he got to go to Oregon, because Bill Dellinger was there. Bill Bowerman, who was huge. He was a huge influence on Steve. He's the one, he wanted to run for Bowerman. That was it. It was like, I want to run for him. I don't want to run anywhere else. And he had plenty of offers from other schools to go there, to go to other schools, and he waited. He waited until he got the letter that, there's controversy on that letter of what really actually was said. And basically the letter was sent. It was basically, Bowerman said, yeah, you can be the greatest in the world. You've already proven it. You have the passion, you have the drive, you can do this. So he went to Oregon. And after his freshman year at Oregon, he never lost a race over a mile. And I can't keep going on and on, because I could talk all day about Steve and his accomplishments. But and I want to just get back to his high school days. He ran the 2-mile. Does anybody know what his 2-mile American record was, or high school record? 8:41.5. Because he wanted to run. He actually had a goal of running even faster than that, but he came through. He learned how to pace himself in high school. So he knew what his splits were supposed to be, and he focused on that. Some of the workouts were so tough, he couldn't do them. He couldn't finish them. But when it came time, okay, it's time to produce, he did it. And that's mental. Mental toughness is what he had, more than any other runner that has even come up to current day. They could never go past that threshold of pain, and he could. And it's very rare to have. So he was very gifted that way. Did he have natural ability? No. He had to work at it to get it. So it wasn't something that he was born with. He worked a lot. In fact, towards the end of his life, he was running 3 times a day. It became an obsession because 76 Olympics, he would have won. He was that ready. So from Oregon, he graduated, and then he went to Oregon Track Club. He started that when he got out of college. So he ran for them, and kept setting records all the way up until his death. But the main thing to know about Steve was he was just a regular guy, just like everybody else. I mean, you might read some things where he was cocky, that, you know, he had an attitude, but really, he didn't. When it came game time, he was ready to go. Yeah, he turned the switch. He was ready to rock and roll, to do what he needed to do. He would do it. He wouldn't just talk it, he walked it too. So he could back it up. When he was like that, it was because he was getting himself focused for what he needed to do. Any questions? Yeah.
How old would he be now?
He'd be in his 60s. So he's born in 51. So I'm not a mathematician. 60.
Anywhere from
63.
0 to
65.
60 what?
63.
63.
60 something. No.
60.
Well, it depends on when his birthday is. Because
January 25th, 1951.
That's the day before mine.
Yeah. Any questions? Did I hit everything that you wanted to? Oh, sorry, Casey.
So your mom, what's the age difference between them?
10 years.
And she's older or younger?
Yeah, she's the eldest. So my mother's, what, 72?
So is there any like great races that you can tell them about? Like any
Great
like
races?
high
Oh,
school
there's-
races or between him and Jerry Lindgren or
Lindgren?
any of those
there was
races?
a cross-country race. That was back in I think it was back in the early 70s. In cross-country, him and, if you guys know who Jerry Lindgren is, through Washington State. Anybody read the book, the pre-book? So you know a little bit about Jerry Lindgren. What a runner he was. Very, very talented runner. Another guy that ran a lot of mileage. Him and Steve just had a rivalry because they were about even talent-wise. Lindgren did a lot more mileage, but you know, and Steve had that mental toughness that most don't have, so he could push himself a lot harder than most. But yeah, in the Pac 8, when it was the Pac 8 back then, him and Lindgren were running this race, and Lindgren looked like he was going to win the whole thing. And he got a 20, 30-meter lead on Steve, and Steve just focused in on, hey, I'm not gonna let this guy beat me. And that lead stayed like that until probably the last half mile or so, and then Steve started turning and burning. And him and Lindgren, right at the end, tied step for step. There was no difference. They were all going, Steve and Jerry were going all out, and they tied exactly the same. It was a tie in a college meet. And they both, Steve was like, I ran my hardest, I couldn't get any faster. And Lindgren was the same. He said, I was beat. There was no way I could have run any faster. And it was a miracle race, because that normally doesn't happen. There's usually a winner. But they were that close together. But they were off the track, they were friends. They were competitors, but they were friends as well. They respected each other. To talk after the races and stuff, it wasn't like, yeah, you're no good, or, you know what, I'll get you next time, and anything like that. Steve was very, very down to earth. You know, he respected, you know, his competitors. So, yeah.
Was there a tiebreaker to that race?
They tied. But nobody was considered the winner of it.
So there was
That
no
was so
tiebreaker
odd.
afterward?
No. No, that's why it was so unique that the two ran so evenly that they tied. It's just, you know, unbelievable. And then there was the Olympic trials. Steve won the Olympic trials in '72, which was huge. I was actually there for that race. And there's a lot I don't remember about it, but because I was, what, five or six, I think. And that was fantastic. You talk about a crowd at Hayward Field. There was nothing like that. It was so loud down there. I mean, it scared me. It was so loud. And people would stand up, and everybody would cheer, say, "Go Pre," just so loud. It would just give you chills. And I remember as a kid, I would just grab my mom and just go, "What's going on here?" You know? Because it was so, I wasn't used to that. So many people screaming for, you know, for someone. And I'm being in the stands and all, and just, whoa, it's just unbelievable. And once Steve beat George Young, which George Young, you know, he basically said he was a little hurt at the time. Steve beat him pretty well, probably by a good 50 meters or so at the end of that race. And it was just fantastic. I mean, people just stayed and were just going, "Go Pre." And I remember someone coming out of the crowd and giving him this shirt that said "Stop Pre." You know, and I was asking Mom, what does this mean? You know, "Stop Pre," like the stop sign, "Stop Pre." So it was more of a joke at the time. Steve loved it. He thought it was great. A lot of people look at that and go, "Oh, that's not very nice," but it was a joke. He loved it.
Didn't he put the shirt on?
What's that?
Didn't he wear the shirt?
Yeah, he put it on, did his victory laps. His victory laps were like 70 seconds, which is just, whoa, fast, even for a victory lap. But after that, after the trials, I mean, he had that intensity and that focus. You know, he would, like they said, someone said it in the book, he used to run his mouth. And he'd say, "Man, I'm going to win this thing. I'm going to win the Olympics. I've got it made. I know I'm going to win. Because I know I can beat everybody in the United States. I'm #1. But he didn't race enough in Europe. So the Europeans were runners too. So Steve would love to go to Europe and run. But the Olympic year, it was, you know what? I'm not gonna go over there and run with them because I want him to not know everything that I'm doing. But when he got over there, he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm probably going to run that last mile in less than 4 minutes," to give him something to think about. And the Europeans were like, "Oh, okay, let's go," because they knew they could run it as well. Because I've got the privilege of talking to some of those runners that ran in Munich with Steve and what their thoughts were on it, and you know. And he went into that Munich 5000. There was a tragedy there as well. I don't know if you heard about the Israelis being. I don't even want to get into that. That's a negative thing. But this incident that happened took its toll on Steve, and he had to actually leave the Olympic grounds and get away from it because it affected him so much. But his coach told him, "You know what? You got to focus like you normally do. You got to focus on this race. This is what you worked for. This is what you want to do. Let's do it." So he went out. He ran. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, what's the deal with his mustache?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Back in the mid-'70s, well, let's see, yeah, well, early '70s, he had called my mom, because my mom and him were pretty close, and my mother helped raise him when he was a young kid. And that's another thing I can tell you if you're interested about that, because I know I don't have that much time. he called my house and or my parents' house, and he wanted to talk to my sister, Chris, because she's 3 years older than me, and so he got her on the phone and he said, you know what do you think about me growing a mustache? And Chrissy was, my sister, she was like, oh yeah, do it, grow it. And then from that moment on, he had his mustache. So yeah, he'd asked my sister, and my sister told him to go ahead and do it. It looked good on him. And then, you know, he did it, and that's how he came up with that mustache. So, what else? Munich.